Record button and we'll go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone. I'm Elena Campbell, President of the Rochester Regional Chamber of Commerce. It's our pleasure to welcome you to our Rebooting Your Business in Safe Mode webinar series. We're so excited to have our presenting partners here with us today. Brad Lambert with Lambert Law, give a wave. And Matthew Vizana with CCS Presentation Systems. You will hear from both of them in just a couple of minutes. And I am going to switch over to share my screen. And let's see. Are you seeing the impact of Michigan auto insurance reform?
Not yet.
No?
Looks like general folders.
Here we go. How's that?
Yep.
There we go. All right. So a couple of things that we have coming up this week that I wanted to mention. The first one is something we all forgot about in the midst of COVID-19, and that's that we had some Michigan auto insurance reform that took place. So we have a webinar tomorrow at 9 a.m. with Tim Crawford of the Crawford Insurance Group, who's going to step us through the Michigan auto insurance reform and some of the things that you might need to be thinking about as your policy renews this year. So we're really excited to have Tim join us and walk us through these changes. We have our weekly member update call, again this Wednesday. These calls will run through the end of June, and then we will not be continuing them in July. However, we will look at August and consider, whether we need to pick them back up again or not. This Wednesday, we will hear from Chris Palazzolo, the CEO of Ascension Providence Rochester Hospital. We apologize again for those of you who were on the call last week. He was going to be our speaker. However, he unfortunately had a funeral to attend to. So we rebooked him for this week. So it will be interesting to hear from him as CEO of our local hospital to talk about the impact that this has had on the hospital, what he sees going forward, and he'll also talk about some of the permanent changes that we're probably going to see in our local healthcare facilities going forward. So we're looking forward to hearing from him. We have our virtual member orientation 201 coming up on Thursday morning at 9, and that is sponsored by Sinclair Wealth Management. This is extremely important, more so ever today than it probably was 6 months ago. But if you are not utilizing our member information center to market your business, you need to jump on this call and find out how you can submit press releases, news releases that scroll on the homepage of our website, how you can post hot deals to our site, how you can post your events so that they show up on our events calendar. And this is more important than ever, as you know, because so many things have really been pushed online and are being done digitally, and that's not going to change. Even though we may be able to reopen our businesses and get out and about more now, so many of us have become used to using platforms like this, Zoom, and it's going to continue to some degree. So it's more important than ever that we're visible online and on all of those digital platforms. And what this orientation shows you how to do is how to take advantage of those benefits through our chamber, through your chamber membership, to get you visible on all of our online platforms. So that is Thursday at 9 a.m. Friday, we do have our Legislative Affairs Committee meeting. Thank you to those of you who participated in our meet and greet with candidates last Friday, I think we had 21 candidates who participated in the meet and greet, and we had everyone from those who are running for Oakland County Sheriff to Oakland County Executive. For U.S. Congress, we had candidates on for that office, our state representative, people who are running for that seat, all the way down to trustees who are running for Oakland Township trustee. So we were really excited to have great participation. We will have in the fall a candidates forum. So after the primary in August, we will do a candidates forum, and we are planning on being able to do that one in person. So we are excited about that. And it is the Legislative Affairs Committee that brings you these types of events. Their job and their goal is to keep our members informed and educated about what are the issues, who is running for office, who are elected officials, providing you with opportunities to have a voice. We do not endorse political candidates. We do not allow political candidates to join the chamber. They may join if they have a business under their business name, but we do not endorse political candidates. But what we see our role as is helping you become informed and providing you with opportunities to have a voice on business issues. So the Legislative Affairs Committee meets this Friday via Zoom at 9 a.m. And if anyone's interested in being part of that committee, we would welcome you. You just need to reach out to me and I can get you that information. And then, of course, next Tuesday will be our very last one of these, Rebooting Your Business in Safe Mode. And as we talked about last week, next week's call will be an opportunity for all of us to share as we're reopening, to share some of the challenges maybe that we faced, some of the things we've put in place that are working really well, but just an opportunity to talk about how it's going with reopening and help each other maybe solve some issues you might be facing and get some good ideas. So we're really looking forward to that. And we, again, really appreciate the time of Brad and Matthew being our presenting sponsors for this series and their willingness to extend it past the original 4 weeks that we had. So I will stop sharing my screen and I am going to allow Brad. I made you a co-host, Brad. And Matthew, I'm going to make you a co-host right now as well so that when the time comes, you're ready. And it's my great pleasure to turn it over to Brad Lambert with Lambert Law.
Elena, I appreciate the opportunity to present once again. And first, can anybody, is my screen showing? Oh, I'm still muted. Is my screen showing?
Your screen is not showing.
Okay. Okay, here we go. There we go. Only done this for 5 weeks. That should be on now, right?
Yep.
Okay, great. Okay, there we go. So let's get started here. Welcome back, everybody. I really appreciate everybody who's come on, and I've had several of you tell me you've looked at the videos as well. So that's your participation in any form is really appreciated. I absolutely enjoy the opportunity to share these developments with you, even though some of them may not be, the developments themselves may not be all that pleasant, but we're at least moving forward and getting closer to a full reopen here. Here is on this slide, I'm not going to go over it in detail, but this is what you would find in the other 5 presentations which have preceded us. So if you have any interest in those topics, they won't be covered much today, but you're certainly free to ask questions about any of these matters when the question and answer period arises. Today, this is what we're going to discuss. This has actually not been a very active week for the governor. She has not done a whole lot, partially because so much is already reopened and there's not that much to do. And she's already pretty much put her OSHA restrictions in place and has not adjusted those to any significant degree. But these other topics we'll discuss, including some interesting court decisions I've chosen to share with you. They give you a pretty good feel for what's to come here on the legal landscape and as it will impact, I believe, the governor's executive orders. And here they are. Here's the executive orders that most businesses, professions, and other enterprises are dealing with that are still in effect. Many executive orders, as you know, have been rescinded by the current ones. These are the ones we're dealing with as we go forward in this presentation. So our reopenings this week, you can see the residential, travel, and troop camps are open, which is a nice break for the kids and others who want to get out and do some camping at the state campgrounds and other regulated facilities, which are covered by the Executive Order 122. She has reopened these, and that'll be something that obviously is a welcome change. Many of you probably aren't aware of it, but the court system was, like many other systems and enterprises in the state, pretty well closed during this last 90, 120, 102 days that we've had the closing orders. There's certainly been criminal and other emergency procedures that have taken place in court, but like a lot of enterprises, the courts have been dealing with phone conferences and Zoom conferences in handling many of the legal matters. And one of the important things that has happened now is that the lawsuit tolling has ended. It's called 102 days, basically from March 10th through June 19th. And what that means for people, and I'll give you the example that I discussed with Elena yesterday. If you had a defamation case, you only have a 1-year statute of limitation. Well, if your defamation case was up on June 19th, then you've got an out and you had to file it by June 19th. Now you have an additional 102 days from there, which would be roughly near the end of September, to file your case. You wouldn't have had that absent the governor's newest order. It's nice to have sports activities resume. I talked to a few parents and people who run these leagues. They're getting it together in terms of getting their schedules. It's kind of a scramble because nobody knew it was going to happen, but these activities during the summer are going to be open, and that's a welcome addition to our summer landscape here in Michigan. We still have what I call the unfortunate few here on the screen that are not open. They're essentially in paragraph 12 of Executive Order 110, which is still in effect to a limited degree. Essentially, they are the indoor gyms, indoor fitness centers, theaters, licensed casinos and racetracks. So, for example, the tribal casinos have been able to open. Amusement centers such as bowling alleys, bingo halls, skating rinks, banquet centers, they are still subject to close. Hopefully, we'll be announcing their impending opening when we talk at least informally next week. Here's the main topic I'm going to discuss to kind of give you the landscape of where I see the legal impact on the governor's executive orders going. This is kind of like a blog in terms of what I picked. There's plenty, believe me, there's plenty of cases out here. I could be here for 3 hours discussing the cases. I'm not going to do that to you. Instead, we're going to discuss these picked cases that I've chosen, starting with the Associated Builders case. I've chosen this one because it shows the interesting overreach by the governor in her orders, which I think we all need to be attended to, in which she somehow determined that she was able to bootstrap the criminal penalties in the MIOSHA statute into her executive orders, which were clearly not allowed by the executive order statute. And I can tell you, I believe I've met Judge Murray, who decided this case at the Court of Claims. I think I've met him at one of the ICL functions or something like that, Wayne State. He's pretty mild-mannered, and he was mild-mannered again, but he was direct in advising the governor that they just didn't make any good arguments for bringing the MIOSHA penalties, the criminal penalties, into the executive order. She just does not have that authority. So those are stricken, and the governor is limited to the penalties which are allowed by the 2 executive order acts, the 1945 Act and the 1976 Act, which she has been relying upon. Now, the Signature Sotheby's case, there's actually 7 different plaintiffs in that case. It's actually a range of different issues, which we have had a different smorgasbord of issues across the board. The legislature's case is different. All these different cases bring up different legal issues with respect to these executive orders. In this case, there is great attention to the mootness issue, which is a real concern for for those of us in the legal field, that by the time the courts get around to this, these issues could very well be argued moot. And believe me, I read the entire 56-page brief of the governor, which is seeking to dismiss this case and also rebut. I'll tell you a little bit about the federal AG who stepped in this case. It's a lengthy decision, and they are lengthy offering, and they really go into mootness. And I expect to see more of this as the governor reopens and says, "Hey, there's nothing left to decide. I've opened everything," which is a little bit disingenuous, because what she did, as I've explained in previous weeks, is she's divided the order up into here's what's open and closed, and here are all the restrictions I'm imposing because of COVID. She doesn't address that all in her entire 56-page brief, because the case was filed before she did that split. So it's challenging when you bring these lawsuits to keep up with all the changes that are going on. Now, the federal AG did enter a statement of interest in this case, and they obviously made several comparisons. There may be a political angle here, I don't know, but there's certainly the legal angle is what I'm going to deal with. And they certainly made several comparisons that obviously left a mark with the governor. I'm going to just read two of the comparisons they made, which are designed to show that these some of these restrictions are arbitrary and irrational. So here's two of them. I'm reading them verbatim. Consequently, the orders permit an individual to go to a bicycle shop to repair a bike without appointment, and it cites the orders. It is permissible to buy however, they criminalize going to a jewelry store without an appointment. It is permissible to buy a Carhartt jacket at a local hardware store, but it is a crime to buy the identical jacket inside a Carhartt store without making an appointment. And of course, these examples are illustrated to show that these orders should be illegal because the distinctions are irrational. That's the argument. Now, this was written on May 29th, so obviously the whole appointment, which was what I was pointing out earlier, the whole appointment thing has been kind of dropped. But they wrote it when that particular order was in effect. The governor responded on June 6th with her 56-page brief, which I've read a lot of that, so you don't have to. And just to give you some context, we're only allowed 25 pages in the federal courts. They use 14-point type, so we actually go to 25 pages. And she has to get permission to do 56 pages. So this is a lengthy brief, even for lawyers. Now, this is an example of the response to the AG that the governor made, which obviously they were rebuffed a little bit by what the AG wrote. And I'm quoting directly again. Any rule of legislation or executive order is susceptible to this sort of superficial nitpicking. To illustrate, one might question the rationality of any regulation by simply noting its boundaries. Is a person exceeding a speed limit by 1 mile per hour necessarily less safe than the one driving a mile below it? And so that's how I'm giving you these examples because that's pretty much the spirit of the arguments that went back and forth there. And we're still awaiting the plaintiffs to actually respond to the motion that's been filed by the governor to dismiss their case. But what I found most interesting in the governor's brief, besides this back and forth with the federal authorities, was her claim to an exclusive domain in the executive orders is pretty expansive. Basically, her exclusive domain is that she can declare an event an emergency. She can decide the response in all its particulars to the emergency, and she can determine the length of the emergency stays in place. And frankly, to my mind, and really I don't see much respect for the other branches of government in the argument she's making. Perhaps that's an element of the fact she's making a legal argument, perhaps not. Because it's definitely contrary to what we all learned in civics government classes in law school, and even in law school when I went, and that is that we have co-equal branches of government, 3 of them. And she's essentially pushing aside 2 of them at this point and saying, no, this is my exclusive domain. It'll be interesting to see how the courts and even the plaintiffs in this case deal with that particular line of argument, because she doesn't make it directly, but it's certainly the impact that one gets when you read through the brief. And she cites the other case I've written down here, the South Bay case, which is an interesting case. It's actually a California case where essentially the Governor Newsom said that the churches can only have 25% capacity, but many other businesses, which are comparable in terms of the risk, can have 50 or even higher capacity to their usual limits because of COVID-19. And in a kind of a reprise of what he did in 2012 with Obamacare, the head justice here, Justice Roberts, sided with the liberals to decline the invitation to enjoin that particular order. So you have a 5-4 split here in the initial decision as to whether to enjoin or not. And it's kind of a precursor. It's kind of a message to the federal courts to lay off. I'm going to be interested to see how that happens. And the reason I'm bringing that up is we all have to realize the landscape we're on in the short term. We're on our own. And that's why I'm repeating this hidden legal peril slide that I showed last week. We're going to be dealing with these regulatory concerns without a lot of guidance from the courts for several months to come. I mean, there could be a surprise popping up today or tomorrow even. And certainly some courts in other states, such as Ohio, have come out with decisions limiting these type of orders. But nonetheless, here in this state, this is what we're seeing. And what you've got to be ready for is the excesses that we've seen in some of the governor's actions, that you've got to recognize what the limits are and, again, deal with those if you think that there are some excesses going on beyond what's allowed legally. And, of course, as I mentioned last week, there will inevitably be legal conflicts that you'll have to sort out, even without a auditor coming to visit you, between the executive orders and legal requirements. Now, this completes my legal presentations, at least as a formal matter. I will share any updates in my part of the discussion next week that we get. Hopefully, we'll be announcing some complete openings and some further openings. And next week will be your turn. We're going to have a fun and interesting interaction with each other as it experiences like Elena mentioned. And again, a little bit about our firm. These are the areas we practice in. I've listed them here. You've seen this every week, hopefully, and it's available to you. Also, you can see what we do on our website. We're always anxious and pleased to help our clients deal with the legal challenges that come up, including those that are with us right now. Again, as I've done before, the cited authorities we've been looking at. And a big thank you to Elena, Maggie, and the Chamber, and all of you for attending these and giving us a chance to share our thoughts with respect to the legal landscape on this very challenging time. And that ends my presentation, Elena.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brad. So I had a couple of questions that I wanted to ask, or things that I wanted to bring up. And then if anybody has a question, please feel free to type it in the chat box, and we will be happy to ask it or discuss it. So I wanted to share, first of all, with everyone that the Chamber office is open. Yesterday was our first day being open, and we are taking the approach of we won't all be in the office at the same time. We're taking turns staffing the office. So yesterday was my day, so I was there. We have our preparedness response plan was completed about 2 weeks ago. I sent it to our staff to review and for their information. And of course, we have it on file in the office as per the governor's orders. We have our health screening form at the front desk that each of our staff has to fill out upon entering the premises. And then we're asking people, we have that nice front lobby area, and we don't have anyone sitting at the front desk anymore. And so we're just asking people not to, we have a sign that says, you know, please don't go past this point. You know, someone will be up to help you. So that's kind of how we are, you know, beginning our reopening process of welcoming our members back. And our office staff back. I did hear this morning, I was on a call, and they are members of our chamber, and we haven't been contacted yet about this, but Imagine Theater is going forward with a film festival. And I was on a call this morning with the Birmingham Bloomfield Chamber. So Brad, can you maybe answer, like, the Birmingham Bloomfield Chamber, you know, was being asked to help publicize the event. So they felt like they were in a bit of a predicament because theaters are not allowed to be open yet there's a member asking them to help advertise an event. that they're going to hold? And then B, what are the repercussions, or what could Imagine Theater see happen as far as having that shut down or banned from happening?
Well, I assume that the Imagine Theater was holding it outside, but obviously that's not the case.
Actually, he didn't say.
Yeah, I mean, my understanding of the governor's orders, and she does not specifically say this with respect to theaters, but she does with respect to the fitness centers and others, is that, you know, if they want to conduct a drive-in or that sort of outside activity, my belief is that would not violate the governor's existing orders. And my other supposition here is that they're probably anticipating that they will be open. I know I've talked to a few of those, what I call the unfortunate few, who are anticipating there will be open by July 1. I know there's all kinds of back channel activity going on there. I can tell by just looking at what goes on at OU Golf Course that they're doing all sorts of back channeling to determine what can and can't be done. So my belief is that they may be going that way. If in fact they are trying to do indoor theater activity prior to the governor opening up their sector, then yeah, they would be potentially subject to a $500 fine and a misdemeanor. That's all she's allowed, and that's the earlier order that I just reviewed, because the governor got cut back. She was trying to impose, you know, the more strict criminal standards that she was not allowed to do so. And any chamber that would be aiding and abetting, that would be the term, in that kind of activity could also be not held directly liable, but certainly there would be some potential for being a, I don't want to use the word co-conspirator because I'm not sure conspiracy law would actually apply, but certainly aiding and abetting might apply.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and I looked it up on their website. It is June 19th through the 25th at Imagine Royal Oak and Imagine Willow Creek. So it's for the United Negro College Fund, honoring Black actors and actresses, writers, directors, and filmmakers. It doesn't say if it's inside or outside, but I can't imagine in Royal Oak where they would have enough.
Okay, well, you just hit a. I know North Carolina did a when you said the topic. North Carolina did a protest race, and the governor even participated, but the governor then turned around and shut it down a couple of days later. So you know, they're allowing protests. So if they're presenting it as in the form of a protest, they may very well be okay.
Interesting times.
Yes, all these little distinctions. Yes,
that's right. That's right. I did want to make. Does anybody have any? Nothing in the chat. Okay. I did want to make an announcement that you may not know about. If you missed applying for an SBA EIDL loan, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, they have reopened the application process. So I wanted to let you know about that. And we will talk about it a little bit more tomorrow on our update call. But that's something important to know. I know a lot of people did not apply right away. And then, of course, the funds ran out. The funds ran out twice, I think. And then the application process closed because they ran out of funds. So that is reopened again. So if anyone missed out and wants to apply for that, please go to the SBA website and do that. So if there's no more questions for Brad, I'm going to turn it over to Matthew, our co-presenting sponsor.
Thanks, Elena. Just pull up my screen here. So for those of you that are new that have joined us, I've kind of run through this a few times. We've got some additions to the to my slides today, but a little about CCS. So my partner and I own the Michigan office. The company has been around since 1991, and we cover most of the United States. We've got about 27 offices, and we cover here the state of Michigan, Ohio, and a portion of Indiana and Illinois. Full design and engineering, in addition to equipment sales, installation, integration, training, and then ongoing service for operations. And what we're talking about here is we've looked at in the past, kind of my highlight is make sure that as you return to work, as the businesses are opening, that you look at all of the various areas of the facility and really leverage technology to make sure that you're providing the safest environment both for your employees as well as any guests or customers that you'd have coming in. Probably the biggest areas of opportunity are in those entrances, where you may need to designate both employee entrances and differentiate those from guest entrances, and then really take a look at the common and shared areas as well too. So one of the newer pieces to our lineup of technology, we've talked in the past about digital signage. We have a company now, Clear Digital. They do a lot of digital signage pieces for us. They've come out with an integrated sanitary gel dispenser that integrates with digital signage. So a big part of this is messaging, both internally and externally, communicating effectively as to what's happening and what you would like your, in a lot of cases, patrons to do. So if you've visited some of the restaurants now with the reopening, they're obviously asking everybody to make sure that they have masks on and to sanitize hands as they're walking in and walking out of a facility. So here's an integrated piece now that would provide for, in about an 11 by 20 inch format, give you digital signage as well as dispensing sanitizing gel. So, and that can either be purchased through the Clear Digital, or you can add any type of your own gel to that. As we've talked about before, probably our biggest seller right now, and the thing that we're dealing with on a daily basis, is digital temperature scan tablets. So a no-touch format, pretty accurate as far as the readings. You can also adjust for ambient temperatures. So if you have an area that's exceptionally hot or exceptionally cold that somebody's coming in and out of, you can adjust the ambient temperature to capture an accurate reading. And these really can be put in a lot of different areas designed to get that thermal reading, provide whether it's a pass or a decline for both your staff and customers. And these can also read with masks on, with masks off. It could, somebody walks in without a mask on, it can actually indicate and tell them to make sure that they add the mask and will not allow an admit reading until they put a mask on. This can all be tied in and archived back to a database, so you can set up employees or recognized people and tie those in from a record keeping standpoint. Couple different manufacturers that we carry. I think we're up to 6 different variations of manufacturers that have offerings. So depending upon the size and the scope and network scenario that you have at an office setting, we have an application that would fit. And then why to invest in them? I think the biggest thing is, again, showing employees and customers that you care and that you're taking all proper steps out there. Personally speaking, we looked at handheld devices and the fact that it created another touch point and or it created the requirement for one of our employees to get within a 1.5 foot distance to take somebody's temperature. So we actually have these installed here in our facilities as well too. Much more hygienic in nature, and you can have multiple areas monitored by a single user. And then full thermographic camera systems are available, virtual receptionists, so additional technology, again, to remove that close proximity and allow people to monitor situations, entrances remotely. These work across all of the different platforms or business sectors, if you would. So corporate, medical, education, retail, restaurant settings. We've deployed them in a number of different areas as you look at it across the country. I think that the conversation is that the TSA is going to a deployment of all of these systems as well too. So new realities in just about all settings. Additional technology options, again, talking about access control systems, have you upgraded from keypads where you have to touch all of those buttons to key cards or key fobs, automations of doors, digital directories and wayfinding that would tie into phones, so people no longer have to touch screens, or you can remove that physical body at a front entrance. Rapid deployment collaboration systems, so the reality is we're not going to fit the same number of people into conference rooms when we return. So we have mobile carts with unified communication systems built in to deploy, whether you're on a Teams or a Zoom or a Google Hangout environment. And then once again, digital signage. There's a lot of different ways that you can format these. If you look to the right there, you have kind of a floor stand model. We can mount displays in portrait or landscape on walls, hanging from ceilings, a lot of different mounting options. But you can see there that you can really start to communicate messages effectively, add in video, add in news feeds, add in social media feeds, much more of that new way of communicating both internally and externally to customers. So the pull-up signs, the manual graphics, not to denigrate those, there's still spots for that, but really the new direction is digital signage in businesses, because you can change it on the fly with any additional pieces of information that you need to add. It can very quickly be deployed in a full network setting. And then there is my contact information, and if there's any questions, happy to talk offline. If you just need a consult, myself or one of our sales team, happy to talk through some of the available pieces and how it may fit into an organization. Any questions?
I don't see any in the chat. Thank you so much, Brad. It's rather fascinating to see how quickly devices like this have come onto the market, and all of the creative and unique technologies. And my mind always starts thinking about, how else could this be applied? How else could this be used? What else could I do with this device? You know? I'm sure people will come up with some creative ideas as well. So
I do have a kind of a combination comment question for Matthew, because a friend of mine, he manages a nursing home, and he indicated that they're taking temperatures and they don't let anybody in if it's really cold and they're under 94 degrees. I wonder if, Matthew, are you running into that and you can deal with that with your equipment?
Well, you can set those, the ranges. So yeah, you could set a lower end threshold and then a higher end threshold. So it does provide for an accurate reading, whatever temperature they walk up. So it's not only alarming at a higher temperature, it's telling you exactly what their temperature is. And you could take it down to a 96 degree or a 94 degree at the low end, and take it up to, I think the CDC requirement is 100.3. Anything over that is the you're flagging it at. But you can also set it lower for a flag. Some of the businesses have set it at like 99.8, and then they're again, as a second step to a protocol, having a more FDA or moving them over to a clinic type environment, depending upon the setting in the business there.
Yeah, my understanding of the concern is that they're coming in from the cold, so you're not getting a good reading because they're still influenced by that. I don't know the physical.
No, again, you have kind of that ambient temperature setting, so you can set it down lower, but it's pretty accurate if you think about how much heat you retain in that head area, and it's really taking that scan. So even if that was initially cold to the touch, it's looking and reading that full head area in order to
Okay.
Interesting. My son used to, when he was in elementary school, would run 99.9 temps. Never could really figure out what was going on, but I'd run him to the doctor and he'd be fine. And anyway, That's good that you can set, obviously, that you can set it at all different things. Let's see. I have a question. I got a carry-out order last week from a local restaurant, and they were requiring everyone to do a temperature screening. They had one of these stand-up tablet temperature programs, including carry-out people. I asked why they required the screening, and they said so they could have 100% capacity in their restaurant. I looked around and there wasn't any spacing between tables. I was under the impression that restaurants couldn't be at 100% capacity yet. Could you please clarify?
Yeah, that's wrong. Under the current order, it's really that simple. That's an interesting exception, and I'm all for it. But no, that's not in the governor's orders.
Okay, I've got another one. Oh, Maggie typed this in. The chamber has received an email from a member that is a bowling alley. They have announced that they will be reopening on July 6th. Do you think they're jumping the gun?
Everything I've heard, and again, this is scuttlebutt. There's no pre-orders, but everything I've heard is, yeah, they're probably going to. If I was a bowling alley, I would start gearing up to the extent I've got to get supplies or anything else in place, because frankly, I think most people would be surprised if bowling alleys weren't able to be open by July 6th. But no, there's no order saying, yeah, that's going to be the case. I would look for one this week.
Okay. Price range for the temperature kiosk.
So depending upon the size of the kiosks, they start at an 8-inch tablet and they go up to a 21-inch tablet, 8, 10, 15, and 21-inch. They'll start at about $1,700, and I think we top out at about $4,300, depending upon if they need to be networked and then what type of a mounting system, if you're going to tie it into a secondary monitor. So there's a couple add-ons, and then as you get into more of a volume type purchase, there are volume discounts that are available with those. And then the gel stands, those start at about $1,400. Once again, depending upon how you want to mount it and how many of the systems that you're purchasing. Anybody that's involved that's a chamber member, we do offer standard chamber discounts, and then like I said, we can get into talking about what's unique to your individual situation, and happy to work with everyone.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Matthew. Are there any other questions? If not, I'm going to ask Maggie to say a few words about the Back and Better campaign. But she has to unmute herself. Wait, you're muted again. There you go.
This is what happens when two intelligent people try to do the same thing at one time. And you'd think we'd be used to it by now. Our Back and Better campaign focuses on promoting local area businesses that have established procedures following social distancing guidelines and are ready to celebrate their grand opening. The Chamber will provide necessary materials to participate and share your great news on social media and also via our e-newsletter, The Pulse. We want everybody to know that there is no time frame on this program whatsoever. This is totally up to you guys when you guys are ready to open. It might be today, it might be tomorrow, it might be 2 weeks from now. We also understand that things are a little bit frantic right now. Reopening is not as easy as everybody thought it was going to be. So we are going to be patient with you, and if you have any questions, please let us know. You can contact me. I'll type in all my information in the chat box. I also wanted to let you guys know that the Chamber is going to host our annual golf outing, which was supposed to be last week, but we have moved it to August the 17th. This will be held at Great Oaks Country Club. Michelle is frantically updating our flyers as we speak. So this should be open for registration probably no later than Wednesday. We ask that everyone think about this very seriously, as this is the only fundraiser that the chamber does for the chamber all year long. So, and again, any questions about that, sponsorships, anything like that, please give me a phone call or email me. And the chamber would like to thank Sherry Companies for probably being a sponsor of the golf outing this year. So,
Maggie,
Yeah.
if I may chime in too, I'm excited about that. Mario, thanks for doing that. And certainly Lambert Law, we're excited about it, and we'll chip in any way we can. I want both Maggie and Mario to know that.
thanks, Brad.
All right,
Are you going
Maggie.
to chip in with the
I-
7-iron or a pitching wedge?
I've done that once this year, Mario, but not very often, unfortunately.
It is a scramble.
Well, Maggie, I like the delayed start because it gives me time to work on my golf game.
Yeah, see? Well, we usually hold it the first Monday in June, and the last probably 3 years, it's been unseasonably cold. So I'm hoping that this changing it up will be, it'll be unseasonably warm. So
That's right. That's right. And Maggie, give Brad a call right after
I
that.
will.
Secure his
He's
sponsor.
on my list.
We got you on record, Brad. So thank you. So I want to thank Brad again, and I want to thank Matthew very much for leading us through this. And Brad, particularly in helping us to understand the executive orders. And, this is important. I know it's been confusing, to say the least. But what is happening is important, because if there is a second wave or a second spike, as they have been talking about, we really need to have some of these things sorted out prior to that. So we've seen the contrary things that have been coming out, and some of the inequities and some of the things that just plain didn't make sense. So it is important that a lot of this wind its way through our court system, hopefully, so that if there is another spike and measures have to be taken again in 6 months or whenever, that there's more clarity for our businesses, because this has been quite a feat to navigate for our businesses. And that is exactly why we put together this series of webinars, so that we could answer your questions and help guide you through. And as you saw, even Brad, the attorney, had a difficult time with some of them because they have been confusing. So we are hopeful that if there's a spike and similar things need to happen again later, things will be clearer, hopefully, for our businesses in exactly what they can and can't do. So, any parting comments, Matthew? Thank you.
No, I appreciate being part of it. Thanks for everything you guys do.
Thank you. And Brad?
Same thing. Thanks so much for giving us the opportunity to present and being a part of this terrific series. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for hanging in there. This is recorded, so anybody who missed it or wants to review it again, it'll be up and available on our YouTube channel probably in the next couple of days.
If I may mention, my presentation today will also be on our LinkedIn page and our website as well.
Yep, and we've been putting it on our website as well under the COVID-19 tab. So you can find all of Brad's previous slide decks there as well. So with that, it's a sunny day out there. Hopefully we can get out there and enjoy a little bit of it. So thank you, everybody, for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Take care.